Hey guys, FirstinWeather here. Welcome to my 2018-2019 November winter forecast. And you might have heard, I'm sorry for making this winter forecast a little later than usual. That's because I've been overwhelmed by the amount of work I've been getting, but I've been working hard on this forecast. I feel confident about it now. I feel good about it. Definitely more confident about it than my previous winter forecast, so let's get started. So the factors that I used to make this winter forecast were first the El Nino, then the PDO, which is the Pacific Decadal Oscillation, the NAO, which is the North Atlantic Oscillation, soil moisture influence, and snowfall cover. And this snowfall cover covers the Eurasian area or the Siberia, and also North America and Canada. So let's get started with the El Nino. Right here on the left you have an image. This is from the IRI. These are the model predictions from September 2018. I should probably have the updated one, but they really don't change much at all. They haven't changed much at all. The models are getting very certain with where this El Nino is going to go. The green line right here is the average of all these weather models right here, all these global weather models. And for December, January, and February, you can see that the average is right around 0.9. So, or sorry, this is for January, but for January, it's going to be at 0.9, and for February, slightly lower, 0.8, and then for December, 0.7. So we're going to be anywhere from 0.7 to 0.9 this winter, which is a weak El Nino. But the main difference that is looking to be prominent this winter is the El Nino being a modified El Nino instead of a normal east-based El Nino. And a modified El Nino is different from a normal El Nino, and it can have different impacts on a classic El Nino, and we'll get into that later in this video. So first, let's talk about the east-based El Nino. And to your left, you have an image with all the analogs for El Ninos: weak, strong, moderate, all of them. And in general, it favors below average temperatures in the southeast and warmer than average temperatures in the northwest and upper Midwest. And then a thin diagonal line of average temperatures running, or basically slicing through the country. And to the right, this is an official image by NOAA about the effects, and as you can see, they have kind of the same thing. You have warmer conditions here, drier conditions in the purple, and a big active Pacific jet stream pushing in that colder and wetter conditions for the south. However, this winter we will be having a modified El Nino, and almost all of the models are agreeing on this. This is an image of a typical modified El Nino. Usually you have the warmest waters in a classic El Nino right off the coast of South America, hugging Peru. But in this one, in a modified El Nino, the warmest waters shift west, and when that happens, you have the core of the warm waters in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, which is also why it's called a central-based El Nino. So, what is pointing to the modified El Nino this winter? Well, we have cooler than average surface waters hugging South America, which is unusual for a normal El Nino, and this suggests that the warmest waters will be in the middle of the Pacific. Moreover, you have almost all the major weather models calling for a modified El Nino this winter. This is the Jamstack, I think this is the CFS, and then this is the NMME, but I might be switched up on these two. But look, all of them are calling for a modified El Nino with the warmest temperatures in the central portion of the Pacific, right here, and right here. So, the El Nino impacts from a modified El Nino, and as you can see, this is much different than the classic El Nino. You have a much better, well-pronounced area of well below average temperatures in the southeast and then in the upper Midwest, and almost no location in the entire lower 48 sees above average temperatures except northern Nevada, southern Idaho, and eastern Oregon. And in terms of precipitation, the western coast is quite wet, so is the southern third or the southern 1/8 of the country, Florida, southern Texas, and the middle of the country is kind of like a dry hole. You just see dry conditions in that part of the country. So that's the El Nino. Now what about the PDO, the Pacific Decadal Oscillation? Well, this winter the PDO is looking positive. In El Nino years, even modified ones, a positive PDO is favored in contrast to a negative or cool phase PDO. That's just what history shows, and that's what the major models are showing. This is the NMME model. As you can see, it has the classic signs of a PDO with the warmer waters right here and warmer waters south of Alaska forming a horseshoe shape with average to slightly below average water temperatures in the middle of that. So those are classic signs of a positive PDO. So it's looking like that's what this winter will bring for us. And if we go to the next slide, these are the impacts of a positive PDO. And as you can see, it is a very sharp contrast. You have well below average temperatures in the east and well above average temperatures in the west. And all these years right here, these are all winters where you had a positive PDO. And so this would favor a colder than normal winter in the east and a warmer than average winter in the west. Now, as for precipitation, you can see that there's a very well-defined area of well below average precipitation in the central, or not central, but areas slightly east of the central United States. This includes southeastern Missouri, southern Indiana. And then you also have kind of a transition zone in the state of California with wetter than normal conditions in the northern portion of the state and drier than normal conditions in the south. And then you also have wetter than normal conditions in Florida and the southeast. Now, one thing to note is the PDO this winter is expected to be slightly positive to only meagerly positive, so not really that big, strong PDO we had a few years ago. So the area of water south of Alaska, just south of Alaska, could have a much bigger impact than the actual PDO. And recently we've seen this huge warm blob, so to speak, form south of Alaska where you have water temperatures well above average. And so this could be potentially significant. It could allow for ridging to take place, and with that ridge, it pumps all the cold air from Canada down into the eastern portion of the country. Now this points to a potentially colder and snowier winter in the mid-Atlantic, northeast, upper Midwest. So this is something that we have to watch, and it's looking more and more likely that we will see this blob, so to speak, this winter, as the models are showing it. It's showing up in sea surface temperature charts, current sea surface temperature charts, and it's only getting warmer. So it's going to be something that we need to monitor and keep track on. Now, the North Atlantic Oscillation, or NAO. This covers the waters in the eastern or northern Atlantic, and the NAO this winter is looking positive. In fact, I'm thinking the NAO this winter could be strongly positive, alright? And the positive NAO is typically categorized by cooler waters south of Greenland, cooler waters west of Africa and west of Europe, and then cooler waters just above the equator, with a big area of warmer than average water temperatures east of the lower 48 and south of Newfoundland, alright? And the NAO being positive could also correlate to the AO being positive, which is the Arctic Oscillation, which is right up here. Now, NAO impacts. Typically in NAO, or a positive NAO, you see warmth basically everywhere in the country. If you look here, in the Midwest, warm. Northeast, warm. Southeast, warm. Southwest, warm. So a positive NAO really isn't good for people that are snow lovers anywhere in the country. And for precip, there's not really that strong of a correlation. You have some dry areas, some warm areas, but nothing too significant. Now, regarding all of that, I formed my analog year. And this year, my analog year is 2014 to 2015. Alright, it most closely resembles all the other factors I've discussed. And so you have warmth in the west, very warm conditions in the west, with cooler than normal conditions and colder than normal conditions in the east. And in terms of precip, we have drier than normal conditions in the west and drier than normal conditions in the south, and basically average conditions everywhere else except maybe a few pockets of above average precip in the eastern coastlines of the country and right around Colorado. And now these two X's right here, I forgot to mention this. I think this is where the analog year is going wrong a little bit. I think these cooler than average conditions in the south are a little overdone for this winter, and I also feel like this warm or this drier than normal area right here is being overdone with this analog year, and we'll see precipitation closer to average than this analog year showing right here. So I've showed you all the factors. I've showed you my analog year. But now let's look at the weather models. Almost all of the weather models are showing a warm winter in the northwest and western United States with a colder winter in the southeast. But the main thing here that I don't agree with the models, that I don't agree with other forecasters. You might be seeing all the other big weather forecasting agencies calling for the heart of the cold to be in the southeast this winter, but I just don't agree with that. I feel like the NAO is going to play a big role in keeping that cold air a little further north than most people are expecting this winter. So the models, I think they're getting it right for the most part. They're just not putting the cold air in the right location. I think it's going to be a little further north. And now finally, or not finally, second to last, we have Siberian snowfall cover, also called Eurasian snowfall cover. And this can give us a good idea of how cold the winter could be, because there is a correlation with the amount of Siberian snowfall cover we get in October and how snowy and cold we are in the winter in the eastern half of the country. And so as you can see, this black line right here is 2018. We started off quite below average than many other winters, but we suddenly rebounded in late October, exploded northward, and we ended up pretty average, pretty good for this time of year. And one of the other things that is important in Siberian snowfall cover is not how much you get, but also how the rate at which you get it. So if you get a sudden explosion in growth, that has also been shown to correlate with snowier and colder winters. And as you can see right here, we have the sudden jump in the past week or so. So we started weak, but we ended strong, and that can also be very important in showing us that this winter could be colder and snowier in the eastern half of the country this winter. And another interesting factor will be snowfall cover in the United States during the next couple of weeks, seeing how that forms, because if we see more snowfall cover than usual in the lower 48, that can also help air masses to remain colder as they come down from Canada, preserving that Arctic air this winter. And finally, my last factor is soil moisture influence. Alright, so this is soil moisture from January to September of 2018, and as you can see, we've had distinctly warm conditions in the west, and or not warm, drier than normal conditions in the west, and very wet conditions in the mid-Atlantic. And this is important. Soil moisture can basically show where the jet stream is ridging, where it's troughing, where you're seeing low pressures, where you're seeing high pressures, and this shows that we're seeing a ridge in the west and a trough in the east, with these this above average precip right here. And when you have an area of very dry conditions or very wet conditions for a long period of time, it can almost tell you where that jet stream is going to dip, where it's going to rise. And this is also a good sign for this winter, showing us that we could be colder than average right here for this winter. So without further ado, here is my 2018-2019 winter forecast. Nope, never mind. That was a spoiler. One more note. I think this winter is looking like another one of those slow start seasons. So I think like those winters we had before a few years ago, this December started off warm and mild, and then January, February, and March were big months in terms of snowfall and temperatures for the eastern portion of the country. I think that could be another one of those winters. If you look at the analog year of December 2014, we were mild, pretty much everywhere in the entire country. So I think that could be another repeat this year, which is quite interesting. And I feel like we're going to be above average, especially for the first half of the month, and then we should start to edge towards cooler than average conditions. So now, without further ado, here is my 2018-2019 winter temperature forecast. So as you can see, I'm calling for well above average temperatures in this red area right here, bright red. And around that, in this orange shade, I'm calling for above average temperatures. In this yellow right here, I'm calling for slightly above average temperatures. In the white area, calling for average. Light blue, slightly below average. Dark blue, below average temperatures. And in this purple, well below average temperatures this winter. So I'll give you a few seconds to look at this. Look at your area and see which category you're in. Give you a few seconds here. Alright. So now let's go to my 2018-2019 winter precip forecast. And again, this is an interesting precip forecast. As you recall, in my last one, I was really unsure about what precip would be like for this winter, but now I'm getting more and more certain about what it will be. So, I think in these areas, the northwest, we're going to see below average precip. We're going to see drier than normal conditions. And then in this white area right here, average precip. Also in southern Florida, we're going to see slightly below average precip, drier than normal conditions. And then basically slicing through the middle of the country in a diagonal line. We're going to see this expanse of above average and potentially well above average precip in the country, especially in Kentucky, Missouri, southern Indiana. I feel like you're going to see above average precip there as that Pacific jet stream gets really active and shoots across the country. And one thing I want to go back to is my temperature forecast. So the reason for this, you might be asking, you might be saying, why aren't you showing the cold in the southeast? Well, it's because of this. The PDO is going to be ridging, the jet stream is going to be pushing south, giving that cold air, and it would usually come down, providing Arctic air to all these areas. But you have to remember that NAO is going to be positive. It's going to make the jet stream want to go, instead of like this, more like this. Right? It's going to start to bend up before it really pushes that Arctic air well south of here. Alright, and so that's going to keep the cold air really bottled up in the northern part of the country and not really allow it to reach the southern portion of the country. So I feel like this will be definitely a different Mordecai El Nino winter than what we typically see in Mordecai years. And this also reflects in my precip forecast. Usually you have in Mordecai El Nino years, you have this area, this big area right here of dry conditions, but that jet stream is going to be pushing north. It's going to be going like this and then going back up due to that positive NAO. And so that Pacific jet stream, it's going to merge with that jet stream further north. So usually you have the dry conditions right here, but those are going to be pushed further north. That's why I have Minnesota, Wisconsin with drier than normal conditions. And these areas that typically see dry conditions during El Nino years end up seeing well above average precip for this winter. So here is my 2018-2019 winter remembrance forecast. So this is basically going to be how you remember this winter after everything is said and done. And if someone asks you, man, how was the winter in your area? This is what you're likely going to say. Alright, so starting in the northwest, we're going to see, in my opinion, or not opinion, but my best guess and my confident guess, this forecast, I'm quite confident about this forecast, that you're going to see warm and dry conditions, potential record warmth too, especially in January and February, as we really see that ridge start to take place in the country with warmer than average temperatures right here. Now in this green area, I think you're also going to be warm, potential record warmth too, but the big difference will be you're going to be wet with that active Pacific jet stream pushing in that moisture. This area could be quite wet for this winter. I think it could make some headlines in the news, especially into January and February. In this white area, sorry guys, but your winter is looking plain old average. Average precip, average temperatures, maybe slightly above average, but nothing more than that. Average snowfall too. Now, if we go to northern Minnesota and North Dakota, I think you're going to be cold, potentially very cold, but dry. Unfortunately for you snow lovers, I just don't think you're going to see some big snowstorms. That jet stream is going to be causing all those storms to go south of you, and you guys should end up with below average snowfall. Moving down to this yellow area right here, this includes southern Texas, southern and almost all of Florida, if not all of Florida. And I think you're going to see slightly warmer and drier conditions this winter. So you're going to see a little warmer than normal winter, and you're also going to see conditions being slightly drier than what you are used to with your typical thunderstorms in those areas. Now moving north, in this nice orange shade right here, I think you have the potential for severe weather, especially in January and February, as those storms merge right here, intensify, and right up the interior northeast. You're going to be in the warm sector of a lot of those storms, and you could potentially see a lot of severe weather. We're talking straight line winds, lots of storms, basically a very ripe area for severe weather. That I think that could be a definite characteristic for you guys this winter. This also extends into South Carolina and North Carolina, and also southeastern Virginia. Now moving north to this pink area, this is the winter battle zone. I think you're going to see lots of mixed bag systems this winter, and you might recall this area is typically further south in Texas, North Carolina, South Carolina, and rarely in the northeast, and the interior northeast for that matter. But with that jet stream turning north a little earlier than usual, not going all the way down south, those storms are going to track like this. they're going to track in the interior northeast this winter. I don't feel like we're going to see a lot of coastal storms, and that's really going to make this area in pink right here the winter battle zone. You're going to see lots of mixed bag systems. I think this winter you're rarely going to see a pure snow event if you're in this pink area. You're going to see lots of sleet, freezing rain, snow to rain to snow. You're not really going to see a pure winter storm because those storms will be going like this. They're going to form right here, and then instead of going to the coast and then going up the coast as being strong nor'easters, providing huge snowfalls for the coastal areas, including I-95, it's going to go more like this. It's going to go like this or like this. And so that's going to make the I-95 corridor basically the area where you're going to see lots of mixed systems. Now in this dark blue area, I think you're going to be cold, potentially record cold, and also very snowy. I think you're going to be seeing frequent storm systems providing lots of snow, frequent snowstorms. In fact, in this area of the country, we'll really be seeing the brunt of this winter. And finally, in this dark red, this ominous red, I think this location will be the worst of this winter. If you're living in this area and someone asks you how the winter went, you're gonna get a shiver run down your spine if you're a snow hater, because I think this winter you're going to see record-breaking snowfall, very snowy, very cold, really the worst of the winter in all the lower 48, potential record-breaking cold, record-breaking snowfall, really just a very active winter. Winter in those areas could potentially break records in all categories. So if you're in those areas, be prepared. Be on the lookout for a potentially severe winter this year. And so that's it, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Please feel free to let me know of any questions or concerns in the comment section below. And stay tuned for my next winter forecast. It should be coming out most likely in late November as I make my final conclusions and final forecast. And yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. Once again, I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.